Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Dr. Ryan Smith. I am a lead faculty for the Clinical Management of the Fitness Athlete online course and for the live course through the Institute of Clinical Excellence. And I'm going to be talking today about symptom modification and more specifically on in relation to the fitness athlete and Greg Lehman's recent Viewpoint article in the JOSPT. So I'll provide a link after I get done talking to that Viewpoint on there as we go through. What I do want to chat on really quick before I jump into symptom modification, good morning, Kelsey, is quick things going on in ICE this month. So the June newsletter just went out, and I want you guys to know that we got a bunch of stuff coming out this month. Virtual ICE is beginning June 26th, and the registration for that is only 2 weeks, and it's 24 CEUs with 52 lectures given throughout the year. I get to give a couple this upcoming year, and I'm excited for that. So if you're looking for some solid continuing education, morning, Kevin. Nice to see you, man. Going through that, I think it's a great place to go. You got Zach Long doing a live seminar in Anaheim, California, June 30th through July 1st. You got an APHPT certification course beginning on July 9th, coming up with Mike Eisenhart and Allie Hartman, the dynamic duo. We also got the course that I'm headed to in a few weeks in Scottsdale, Pennsylvania, over at Vishnu King's place. That's already, I think, might be have 2-3 spots left, but there's looking to be 30 to 40 people there learning from Justin Dunaway and Morgan over a whole total spine thrust manipulation course. So I'm stoked. I'm excited for the workout at the end of the day for that too. And last but not least, for the fitness athlete stuff that we have going on, Mitch and I have a new online Clinical Management Foundations fitness athlete course starting on June 25th, and the advanced course is starting June 18th, in addition to the last call for the June 10th beginning of the Modern Management of the Older Adult with the awesome Dustin Jones and Christina Pruitt. So, all that being said, let's dive into symptom modifications here really quickly. So, like I said, we're looking at Greg Lehman's recent Viewpoint in JOSPT that just came out, yes, literally last week. He posted on there. I'll provide the link afterwards. When we talk about symptom modification, especially in regards to our fitness athletes, we want to take the Viewpoint, I think, similar to what Greg was referring to, in that there's a whole bunch of different systems, thoughts of how to help improve pain, whether that's the shoulder symptom modification procedure from Jeremy Lewis, whether that's mobilization with movements, whether that's the McGill approach for improving instability and catches, or whether it's cognitive functional therapy. And my favorite part of that is how he breaks down low back pain in regards to somebody looking at cognitive functional therapy versus the McGill approach. Both are actually telling someone to do almost opposite things. A stable, midline exercise approach versus cognitive functional therapy is having you relax and go through motions. And yet both are helping people with low back pain, and both can be utilized. So is it that one system is better than the other? No. But realistically, even though they're telling someone to do two different things, two different types of activities, in reality, what they're both doing is modifying symptoms. And through us and our instructors here at ICE, we understand that symptom modification is huge. Not from just the point of, yes, I'm trying to help this person in pain, but from the standpoint of, realistically, I'm trying to sell my treatment and my plan of care for them. I'm trying to build the bike, as we always say. And what better way to do that than help show that person that by what you're doing, you can accomplish modifying how they feel by either how they move, by using manual therapy techniques, or anything else in your toolbox that allows them to feel differently. And I think that's the equation of symptom modification that we often forget, is that when we're modifying symptoms, we're changing how they feel. And that's why people are coming to see us. Now, the kicker is we can do that in a multitude of ways, and it doesn't have to be a specific system or train of thought to get us there. It needs to be curtailed to the person in front of us, right? Maybe cognitive functional therapy is great for one person for low back pain and not for another. And our fitness athletes, we're going to get all sorts of things coming around. And for a population that primarily has a lot of what I call underprepared injuries, or typically known as overuse, we need to be available to all these systems and find which modification procedure is going to work best for them. For somebody with low back pain who tends to deadlift and squat a lot, maybe that stabilization type of modification, McGill approach, isn't the best case because they're already breathing and bracing a ton with squats and deadlifts. maybe they might do well from more of a cognitive functional therapy approach and relaxing and trying to get in new positions and exhaling and breathing and doing those type of things. Maybe it's a hands-on mobilization with movement that allows them to modify their symptoms. Any of those can work out in those ranges. We need to find what works best for the person in front of us. So Greg's comparison of those two, I think, are amazing as far as he goes through. In addition to that, when we're building that bike, when we're selling our treatment plan of care, I think what we're really stumbling upon in terms of pain is an expectancy violation. And Greg mentions that in his paper, and a lot of great work's coming out from Mick Thacker overseas in the UK on that. In reality, when we're modifying people's symptoms, when we're using a test-retest approach, we're violating the expectations that they're going to have pain with movement. Now, that's just not just a chronic or persistent pain issue. That can be any sort of pain they're coming in with. When you defy someone's expectations, especially when you have a movement that's typically coupled with pain, and now we're modifying that symptom to be less or be none at all, we're getting a huge sales point from that standpoint and really building that bike and that buy-in for what we want to do with that person overall. So I think that expectancy violation plays a huge role in the overall symptom modification. Now, some caveats for this symptom modification is that it's not always just looking at pain. I think we lose sight of that sometimes of, man, I need to get this pain to 0 out of 10. I need to do this and get them out of pain, etc. Sometimes some people really don't care. They're like, you know what? I've had this pain for so long. I just feel as though I'm off balance on one side, or I feel weak on one side, or I just feel not right on like this or that, or I feel off balance, whatever it could be for you. You have to understand that that type of feeling can also be a symptom as well. So symptom is not just exclusive to pain. Symptom modification is inclusive to everything else that person might be expressing to you. So if someone's like, you know what, I've had 8 out of 10 pain for years, what I really care about right now is I don't feel like I can walk on my right side without feeling very stable. How do we modify to get that better? Well, oftentimes we can try any of these approaches to get there, knowing that there's commonalities among all the approaches and that we need to individualize that to the person in front of us. The other way I want to look at symptom modification is the uncertainties with it, right? So this symptom modification fits my bias in a whole bunch of ways, from getting buy-in, from selling the plan of care, from showing test-retest changes, to utilizing any tool in my toolbox, whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy, all the way to stabilization exercises and load management, anything have you. But I want to talk about, okay, what's the potential fallbacks for this? And I think Greg outlines this really, really well in the paper. And a few things that I've caught myself doing as a physiotherapist. And probably the biggest one he mentions is that trying to always reduce symptoms, always trying to modify symptoms, can create hypervigilance or unreasonable patient expectations that ultimately become demotivating. In addition, the inability to modify symptoms may also cause consternation in the clinician that, in turn, may be imparted to the patient. Those are quotes from Greg's actual paper, and I think that's huge. Symptom modification should be a very important thing for us to do. It should be essential, but we shouldn't always go chasing after that in the sense of, I need to modify that symptom. I need to get rid of this pain. Sometimes we just need to look at the person in front of us and be like, what have I accomplished in this session? And maybe the symptoms haven't gotten better, but do we have a realistic understanding of where we're going in front of us for our plan of care? If we're always chasing to make a change, oftentimes we're going to get stuck at the times we don't. And there's going to be a lot of times we do not get a great way to modify symptoms within that actual session that we have. And sometimes our best way that we can help that person in front of us is laying out a plan to show, okay, we didn't make the exact changes I want here, but here's what we think is going on. Here's what you've told me, and here's where we can go moving forward. Again, it's also listening to them in that sense of maybe they could care less if it's modifying the symptoms right away, but you've shown them a way that they can keep exercising or keep moving or what have you from that standpoint. Or you give a framework of, hey, especially when you talk about tendinopathy, having some pain while you're working out isn't necessarily a bad thing. I've now given them a framework that, in general, 3 out of 10 pain or less is okay for most people in regards to tendinopathy. And just that reassurance, that rationalization for them can be a way for them to help with their own symptom modification over time. So I've got lost on that rabbit hole of trying to do way too many things to modify symptoms and make a change and be like, look at that test-retest. And I've done that enough times where I've then looked at the patient and I've been like, see that change I just made? And I always say, I just made. And I realized that they could really care less because, wow, I just improved their shoulder flexion to get them fully overhead without pain, but it doesn't translate to anything that they talked to me about earlier and having problems with their overhead press or their squats or anything along those lines. So that symptom modification has to be in relation to a meaningful activity they care about, or showing that, okay, I've improved your shoulder flexion to have no pain. Now let's see, does that also improve it when you're doing this activity of an overhead press that you want to do, right? It has to be related. And I think it oftentimes myself gets blindsided by that fact when I'm chasing symptom modification other than a quality improvement for that person and a plan for them to keep going forward, right? The last part of this that Greg kind of touches on is that are symptom modification techniques necessary? Do they confer any additional benefit? I think that's a really important question to answer. At blank face, it seems very logical. Yeah, of course, if I can improve someone's pain, it's going to be better, right? That's huge. But is it always necessary? I don't know. Sometimes if we just look at load management, and I'm talking to some of my runners and athletes of, hey, you know what? You're having this, and it's a load management issue. It's a quantity of volume that you're taking on, right? I might not be able to do a ton for your pain right now, but this exact plan of building you back up gradually is going to heavily have an improvement in symptoms over time. And I think that's kind of where that question's going at of, is it necessary for me to eliminate this person's pain here? Not necessarily. And I don't think it needs to be chased along those lines either. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, 100% agreed. Tying the symptom modification to the meaningful activity for them is absolutely essential as we keep going forward. So all in all, that's what we're looking at for symptom modification. In terms of the benefits of why we do it, it builds a bike, it gets a buy-in for our plan of care, and it's a great way to use the test-retest model for a person to see significant changes. Not just because it reduces their pain, but it shows them that they're coming to you because they feel a certain way, and you can help within that session, usually through mechanical ways, show them that they can improve how they feel based on how they move more often than not, right? And that's absolutely essential. It's important moving forward, especially for our fitness athletes who think that every time they squat or deadlift or do a certain movement, they have pain, that they can change it through load management, through our ability to change, voodoo bands, whatever technique you want to use to help them show that they can feel differently. On the tail end of that, though, is that we don't always need to chase that, and that the chase of reducing pain or showing a change should not take priority over not linking it to a meaningful activity for them or to a rationale that shows them where that change and reduction or symptom modification is leading to in their plan of care. If those things aren't linked, it won't be there. And the easiest way for you to do that, again, if you're looking at just simple range of motion or stuff like that and showing a change within session, explain how that can then relate to the activity that they're going to. I use it from a load management standpoint of, hey, the load I'm putting on your shoulder in a passive range of motion is very little, and you have pain. Now we've just reduced it. The load you're doing with an overhead press is way more. So if we can get this to change, we can definitely get that overhead press to change if we continue to work at this. And last is the expectancy violation piece that I think is going to keep coming out more and more, and that person is dissociating that movement from that pain in a very significant way. So I hope that kind of gives you an idea of where symptom modification is and going. I know as a student, I saw very little of it. It was very much a kinesiopathological approach of, hey, I can identify this exact structure that's causing that. Let's strengthen and stretch it and not show anything, and you'll get better over time. Everybody gets a little better over time. That approach, I think, is going out the window, both from imaging in terms of structure, as well as knowing that our clinical tests aren't really that great overall for those things. So symptom modification approach is great, but know that there are these questions that Greg is asking, saying, okay, this is a great tool, but what other things are we missing that we don't know, that we need to ask ourselves repeatedly to make sure we don't fall into these holes of I'm only chasing symptom modification and pain reduction within that actual session and not relating it meaningful to the person out in front of us. So I will post a link to the JSPT article of Greg's thing after this. I encourage you to check it out. I think it's a great viewpoint. He ties in a lot of different systems together that relate them to one another, goes over the history of how we've come from the kinesiopathological approach to this more symptom-related modification procedures. He ties in the SSMP with it. I think it's a great overall viewpoint and something that we preach in our course with the fitness athlete. And I think if you go to any ICE course, you'll see a big emphasis on building the bike in session changes with your person in front of you to get a buy-in, to establish a solid plan of care, to relate to their meaningful activity. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day, a great rest of the weekend. I hope we get to see you in an ICE course coming up soon. That Pennsylvania one's going to be an absolute blast. I can't wait to get up to Vishnu King's place and clinic up there. So, thanks. I'll throw up that link. Hope you guys have a great rest of Friday.